Hey, welcome back to Nosco Unpacked, the channel all about flexible packaging. I'm Steve Kruger, product manager here at Nosco for flexible packaging, and today is going to be the second segment where we're talking about barriers within flexible materials. Okay, and today is going to be the second part of our segments on barriers and flexible materials. If you haven't seen our first segment, go ahead and take a peek at that one before you watch this one. And we're going to move on over to our lab where we can reconnect with Steve so he can explain more about barriers. And again, remember, he's just a little bit different. Hey Steve, so I had a few more cool... What are you doing?
I'm measuring the tensile strength of my gummy worms.
Okay. Steve, while you're finishing your gummy worms, I was wondering if I could ask you a few more questions about barriers.
Absolutely, Stephen.
Hey Steve, thanks so much for joining us again.
Happy to do so.
I'm super excited to talk to you about this, but I gotta ask you something. It seems like every time I come in here, you're always eating something. Do you ever work around here?
A man's gotta eat, buddy. A man's gotta eat.
So Steve, we talked last time about the differences in barrier between light, oxygen, moisture, and odor, and the various barrier levels that those contain. What are the types of films that we offer here at Nosco and kind of what they're used for, or how they're used?
Yeah, so let me break it down by each barrier type, and let me show you in the graphs that I put together for you, okay? So let's first talk about oxygen barrier. So on the low end, the one that has the least amount of oxygen barrier, we're talking about something like a clear or white polyester with a polyethylene sealant layer.
Okay.
And then as we move to, say, a silver metallized polypropylene, there's more oxygen barrier, letting less oxygen into the package.
Okay, so we're kind of stepping from something that doesn't protect a lot to something that protects more.
You see on the graph, the lowest barrier is about 9 on the OTR scale, and then the polypropylene is about 5.48. Then we get into the materials that provide real oxygen barrier. The first one on the list is the clear white polyester with the EVOH.
Okay.
Okay, that gives you a much higher level of oxygen barrier protection at a OTR of 0.07, hardly any. And then the next step is the silver or white metallized polyester with a polyethylene sealant layer. That gives you even a lower oxygen transmission rate of 0.05. And really the ultimate in oxygen barrier is any of our materials that have a foil inside. Okay, so those are things like a silver or white polyester with a foil and then a polyethylene sealant layer. Those are going to be your ultimate oxygen barrier material. So the next chart shows the moisture or water vapor transmission rate of our different materials. Much like the oxygen transmission rate, we start with the white polyester with a polyethylene sealant layer, and then we go to the EVOH sealant layer, and then to the metallized materials, the metallized polyethylene or the metallized polypropylene. And then just like oxygen, the material that has the lowest moisture transmission rate is also the one that contains the foil, polyester foil polyethylene kind of construction. Okay, and so the next chart shows the light transmission density, or how much light is allowed to pass through the film. And obviously a clear film, like the clear polyester with the EVOH sealant layer, is clear. So it's going to let light pass through it very easily. So it has a low transmission density rate, as you can see. And then we transition to the white films, which will block some of the light, but most of the light still gets through it. It still has a relatively low transmission density. And then as we start to add metallization to the film, that really blocks a lot of the light. With the metallized polypropylene or the metallized polyester. Those are about 1.9 around there in transmission density. And then the one that also blocks the oxygen and the moisture also does the best job of blocking light as well. So really the rule is if it has foil, it's going to have a good barrier for light, moisture, and oxygen. And the last chart just shows kind of a real simple comparison of the odor transmission rate. As we said, it's very much related to oxygen transmission rate. So on the low end are the clear or white polyester with polyethylene, and then on the high end again is the materials that have the foil in there that really prevents the oxygen, the moisture, the light, and the odor from passing through the package. Make sense?
Makes sense. So if I'm hearing you correctly, really what I'm gathering is when you really want to talk about maybe the best barrier, highest protection, longest shelf life options available for your product, foil is really going to be that really best solution for us.
Exactly.
We've talked about all the different levels of barrier, but realistically, like, how do I know if my product has enough barrier, if it's being protected the appropriate way? And how does that be determined?
Yeah, really, that's a great question, and that's really the key. So most customers do what we call product stability testing. So first, they need to understand, that use by or best by date that's on that package is really important, because you need to know that product inside is going to be as good on that date as it was when the package hit the shelf. So most customers, we recommend, do product stability testing. So they'll use a third-party lab, they'll take their product with their packaging, and they'll ask them to do a number of tests to evaluate the effects of the environment during its planned shelf life. They'll check for things like the moisture content, and they'll check for the nutrient content. Sometimes it looks good, it tastes good, but after a period of time, those nutrients are lost. Really, the benefit of that product are lost. So the customer wants to know that their product is as good on that best by or use by date as it was the day that it went in the package. So they will use a third-party lab. They'll do a number of different tests to make sure that product is as good as it can be for its entire shelf life.
Hey Steve, thanks so much for that fantastic explanation of barriers and what they're used for and how they help protect my product. I found this information extremely valuable. I hope you did as well. And as always, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. This has been Nosco Unpacked, flexible packaging made easy. See you next time.